Hi, I'm Alex Berke, and I'm going to be talking about shifting diets. And this is a bit different than what my colleagues are talking about because this is something that we can change at the individual level rather than waiting for policy or infrastructure developments. All right, so before I get started, I am asking you to go to this link, which you can also get to by scanning this QR code. Please take out your phone, your whatever device, and you're gonna then go to this form that is a Google form. It's really short. Ask one question to select your food preference between those two options. Yeah, thank you all for doing this. Great. And the reason I'm asking you to do this is that we want to make this talk more interactive, and you're all going to be eating food together later at this conference. This talk is about food, and we want you to all sample what this talk is about. So thank you. This will be way more fun with your participation. All right, great. So before we get started, let's just recognize that how we produce and eat food has taken many forms across history and cultures. For example, there are parts of the world where millions of people have been vegetarian for centuries. And these millions of people show us that there are alternative ways to eat and thrive. Yet in the US, much of agriculture is factory farming and animal foods. Our food systems have a massive impact on the environment. Scientists estimate that when incorporating transportation, food systems are responsible for more than 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions, and that if left unchanged, they alone can keep us from meeting the climate targets set in the Paris Agreements. So what can we do about this? If you were here yesterday, I think you know where this is going. We can shift diets to consume fewer animal products. They contribute the majority of food-related emissions and are much more resource-intensive than plant-based foods. Producing animal products contributes more than 56% of food-related emissions and takes up more than 75% of global farmland, yet only contributes about 37% of the protein and 18% of the calories to the global food supply. This is also an issue for global food security. The world needs to feed a growing population, but animal-based foods are taking up the majority of farmland. Also, animal-based foods are the leading cause of deforestation. This is due to clearing farmland for livestock and the products that feed them. And the world is producing more animal products than people need. This is especially problematic in the US and other affluent countries where meat consumption is the highest, and where average diets include more protein from meat than the amount of protein that a healthy diet requires. A recent study found that in the US, the standard diet, which contains meat, results in more than 3 tons of CO2 equivalent emissions per capita year. That's beyond our per capita year target with food alone. Versus a plant-based version of that US diet, which is also called vegan, can reduce emissions by more than 50%. So we wanted to model the impact of shifting from that standard US diet to plant-based within our local community. And to do this more realistically, we first estimated the status quo of how many days per week people eat plant-based versus other diets, averaged across the population of Massachusetts. And we did this by running a survey and combining results with census data using stratified random sampling. We estimated that averaged across the population of Massachusetts, people eat the standard meat diet 4.4 days per week, vegetarian 1.7 days per week, and plant-based 0.85 days per week. And then we estimated the impact of shifting from this status quo to plant-based by gradually reducing the amount of days that people are eating meat and increasing the number of days people are eating a plant-based diet instead. And then we modeled on top of that the impact of shifting to local production and found that can further reduce emissions by about 10%. But still, the greatest impacts come from shifting diets. So how do we get this shift to happen? The solution should and can involve delicious plant-based alternatives and fresh local food. For some people, this might include plant-based meats or other novel foods with more innovation coming from people like Patrick Brown. Or for other people, it might simply mean swapping meat for beans and other plant proteins. But plant-based food that's delicious will not be enough. We might need further interventions or help from things like policy or strategies from behavioral economics like nudges. With policy, we've seen examples in the public sector of cities shifting school lunches towards plant-based. And in the private sector, companies announcing they will no longer pay for meat at events. But these policy changes can be unpopular and controversial. Another set of strategies is from behavioral sciences and is about changing how people perceive choices without necessarily taking away choice. For example, in our culture, meat is often the default, like a beef burger being the default and a bean burger requiring a special request. But what if this was reversed? Research experiments have shown that reversing this default can have significant impacts. So we did a similar experiment with you all just now. When you went to that form at the start of the talk, some of you saw a form that looked like this with a vegan label on option 1. But a random half of you saw the same 2 options without a vegan label. And so our research question was whether these vegan labels negatively impact people's likelihood to choose these vegan options. The idea is similar to the experiment before, where we must shift towards a choice architecture where plant-based is the default. But these vegan labels might make it seem like meat is a default and plant-based is not. We ran this already as a randomized controlled experiment a few times with, of course, different food options, and found that vegan labels significantly impact people's likelihood to choose these choices. So you all just participated in a real experiment. And honestly, I have no idea what the results are going to be. We haven't done this before with these food options. This was based on what I think you're going to be eating for lunch. So this is a little risky, but is anyone interested in the results? Yeah, okay. Could the production team put them up? All right, so on the left-hand side, we have results from the form with the vegan label. On the right-hand side is the results without the vegan label. And you know what? They're pretty much the same. Yeah, wow, I think you're a plant-forward bunch. Maybe you were primed by Patrick Brown yesterday. That's awesome. Great, thank you. So you might also notice that both these options are actually plant-based, and I think they're both going to be delicious. So I hope you think about this at lunchtime. So in summary, we can and we must shift towards delicious plant-based foods for environmental sustainability. But this can also improve animal welfare, public health, food security, and create new local economic opportunities, providing win-wins. So the change can also start with us. Thank you, and please welcome Andres Rico, who is going to talk about communities without infrastructure.